And we're back. Hi, so this is Stephen O'Grady. I'm the co-founder of RedMonk. I am here today to talk with Tom. Tom, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Tom Turner. I'm a software development manager here at GE Digital.
Outstanding. So this is actually a follow-up to a video that we've already done talking about GE's Predix platform. So, if you want to get the basics in terms of what it is, we'll provide a link in the show notes, and you can certainly go back and view that first. But what we wanted to do today was essentially talk about some of the resources that are available for that platform. Essentially to kick off and talk about, okay, where do I start? What are the kinds of things that are available to me as a developer? So with that, Tom, I think you want to start us off with the resources page. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad you said resources. So here I am at the homepage of Predix.io. So Predix.io is our developer portal. And then if I click on this resources page, you can see there on the shelf, there's lots of direct links to some of the content that we'll be talking about today.
Okay.
So first here on the resources page is the reference app. There's links to guides and training and docs and developer tools, etc. So this is just a good place to come to find things, okay? And what I'd like to do today is let's just take a tour of what some of those things are.
That sounds good to me. So where do you want to go first? Reference app, maybe?
Yeah, let's take a look at that reference app. So the reference app is a live running app. We've got it up there running 24/7. The way I always explain this app is really as a Java pet store for Predix. Right?
Yeah, and actually, just for listeners who aren't familiar, the Java Pet Store was a classic reference app that shipped with Java, essentially to illustrate sort of what the platform was all about and what you could build with it.
Exactly, right? And there's lots of great tools and SDKs inside the reference app as well. So it really gives you an idea of what an industrial internet application might look like, some of its form and function, but also inside the app, you can pull it apart and use some of the utilities inside. So here we have a Rmd Reference App that stands for Remote Monitoring and Diagnostics. That's the classic industrial internet use case. You've got sensor data and an asset, or one or more assets at your plant that you might be monitoring, and you're really just trying to get an idea of what the plant health is or what the asset health is. So that's the basic premise of the reference app. And then if we look inside of it on the About box, this actually pulls in the GitHub README. So the reference app is a set of GitHub repos that you can actually go and get the open source code.
Oh, nice.
And use yourself.
Yeah.
So this is just pulling in the README. If you happen to pop over to GitHub, you would see the exact same thing. You can see there's a front end and a back end. We talk about how we layer the various pieces of the reference app. As we scroll down some more, you can see here there's the various components. So there's these are edge components. So you might have a Predix machine running at your factory. You've got various microservices that we actually give you that could form the basis of your app, right? And you're leveraging Predix services.
Yep. So effectively, what you're saying is that there's a couple of different repos, so I can go out effectively and build this, but also take it apart and repurpose this to build an industrial application. Obviously, from the demo application, you can see the industrial applications used. They're a little bit different than applications that a lot of us might be familiar with. In terms of managing physical devices and your metrics and PSI and everything else. So so this has been great. So we have a reference app. So what else do we have? I think next we wanted to talk about the Oauth security components.
Yeah, exactly. So everything in the Predix cloud is protected by Oauth Security. So you can think of Oauth as every time you go in and log into a website and they ask for your Facebook login or maybe your Google login, that's essentially Oauth too, right? So you're using that single sign-on to help you get access to other apps and other resources. So we use that in Predix because we have a lot of different services that are being orchestrated. And so then you are essentially, those services are protected by Oauth Security. So just wanted to touch on that because Predix is in the cloud. It is on the internet, right? So you can't create applications or access services without having a pretty good understanding of OAuth and of security. The main thing to note is that you're just really setting up the security in the UAA server and then passing tokens around, right? So secure encoded tokens.
All right.
Yeah, so the other thing I wanted to mention is, and we'll touch a little bit more about the security as we go. It's pretty much everywhere, so you'll see it in some of these other pieces.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that we have a design system that called Predix UI, right? And so all of these components that you see here on this web page, so this context browser here, this data table, this time series chart that you're seeing with all these various widgets on here.
Yep.
This is all part of the Predix UI framework, right?
Right.
So you can go out to predix-ui.com and visit them, right? So these are all free. You can see there's lots of things like alerts and charts, and there's the context browser and the data table. Yeah. So this is a great resource. The UI team has done a really good job on creating a cohesive look and feel that you can use in your applications.
So these are, the UI components are, apart from the CSS, I'm assuming that they're JavaScript, is that right?
Yeah, they're using web components in the back end. And so it's based on Google Web Components. The default interface to those web components is using Polymer, but the web components don't really care. You can use it with Angular, React, any sort of front-end UI framework.
Okay. Yep. Fair enough. Yep.
And so what's interesting is that this repo that you're looking at right here is the front end of the reference app. It's actually also, if I go out to GitHub, so this repo here, it's if you download this, you will actually get the front end of that reference app, and we have it working so that it's in offline mode, right? So in the cloud, as you learn, there's something called a manifest here. You simply comment out or comment in these backend services. Right. And it will be in JSON only mode, right? So it'll actually serve up the front end that you saw there, and you can work offline. You can actually work, at home or at the beach.
Yeah.
So let's hop on over to the guide. So I've gone to the resources page and clicked on guides. And this really is the portal into all of the free and open sample apps and SDKs and utilities that we have, and the tools. So this is really designed to move from top to bottom. You can filter as well. So if you want to just get only the list of SDKs, you can just click on this. Yep. And then so this is a nice tool. So a lot of the things I'm discussing today is embodied in this article right here called Learning Predix. Hello World's a great place to stop at.
And
essentially we take you...
Yeah, so these are actually, the timing here is great. So in other words, you can say, hey, this is going to take me 10 minutes, this is going to take me 15 minutes. So in other words, I know how much time I have to allot going in, which is nice.
Exactly.
Right.
So we've already viewed that live Predix app. If maybe I want to push my first app to the cloud. So depending on who you are, what type of developer you are, how advanced you are, perhaps you've never seen a cloud app, you can go straight to that reference app and then just run the installer and download the entire reference app. Or you can take a more slower approach and do you push your first very, very basic app, we give you microservice templates, so you might not be aware of how to create a microservice.
Right.
Front-end microservice using something like a Node.js, back-end microservice using something like Spring Boot.
Right.
And so we have those. These templates actually are pretty cool because if you look inside the reference app or any other bits of our sample code, we actually just go straight to the templates as our starting point. So we go to that GitHub repo, we clone it, and then just give it a new name and then check it in.
Right.
And really all of the only thing that we're really concerned with is it just adding in our extra business logic, or maybe dropping in one of the SDKs because we want to talk to a specific.
Yeah, so in other words, you essentially have a framework that you can start with and drop in essentially your own pieces, but effectively you have scaffolding, you're not starting from scratch then.
That's right. That's right. It's a great way to get started, and we do it ourselves every day, so it's always up to date with the latest. So we have the Cloud Foundry CLI. That's needed for logging in.
Yep.
We use Git as our source code repository, so we popped over there. There's literally dozens of repos over there. Node.js in this particular example, and then the Predix CLI. And so the Predix CLI is a wrapper around the Cloud Foundry CLI, and it just reduces the steps that you need to get going. Right. It's much quicker. Okay. Right. So the first thing that it can do is when you type in Predix login, it just gives you a nice, easy list of all the clouds that we have.
Yeah, where you want to go, right?
And then we have we've implemented Bash autocomplete into the CLI, and it actually it pulls in the CF CLI as well. So because it's a wrapper around the Cloud Foundry CLI, you're getting a lot of you're getting this extra functionality for free. So you can just hit tab like you do in a Linux terminal shell.
Yep, standard
and
autocomplete. Yep.
Basically, and it tells you, well, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? I found that I constantly kept Control-C, go and look at the docs, or go off to another web page to look at the docs. And this really just streamlines my everyday life in the cloud. So highly recommend the Predix CLI.
Yep.
So when you create a Predix service, it's actually I wrote it down. It was 54 clicks. Okay, and the Predix CLI, the Predix CLI reduces that to 3 steps.
Okay.
And so if you want to create a service and you want to set it up, tie it to your UAA, your secure UAA instance, and create a client ID, and then add all the Oauth security. They're called authorities.
Right.
It all just does it in one step. So this piece here is pretty awesome. One thing is, if you want to stop off and install these tools manually, we actually have installers here that you can just run these and get these tools real quickly. And then all the tutorials are designed. If I just click this, I hop on over to terminal window.
So basically, then what we've walked through essentially are a set of tools, a set of services, toolkits, sort of what have you, that are essentially aimed at developers who either want to interact primarily from a management standpoint. If we're talking about the console, APIs. If we're talking about the toolkit, SDKs. If they want to start from a software perspective, CLI, probably all of the above. But basically, the notion here then is that you in terms of using the platform, you have a standard set of tools, regardless of sort of what your specific concern is for the platform. Is that a fair way to sum that up?
That's a very fair way to sum it up.
All right. Well, this has been fantastic, Tom. I appreciate your time, and thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. Nice talking to you.
Yeah, likewise.